everyone, my name's Laura and I work here at the Town of Windsor Museums. Today we're going to learn a little bit about the different jobs that people had in Windsor 100 years ago. The first one I want to talk about is the sugar beet industry. Now, sugar beets were very important here in Windsor, and the first thing people had to do was farm the sugar beets. That was a very hard job, and usually entire families would work together, meaning the mom, the dad, and even the kids would be working on the sugar beet farm. The most important and probably hardest job was called beet topping. Now, I don't have a real sugar beet, but I do have this fake one that's about the same size, and I also have this really dangerous looking tool here called a beet knife. Now, this tool has this little pointy part on the end and a long blade, and it was used to help you pull the beet out of the ground and then chop the top off. Now, this job required a lot of bending down, and so usually the children had to do this job because they were closer to the ground. Once the sugar beets were harvested on the farm, they were brought to Windsor's sugar factory where they were turned into sugar, just like the sugar that we use today whenever we bake cookies, put it in our coffee, or all kinds of other uses. Now, making sugar beets into sugar is hard work, and both men and women worked together in the factory to make giant bags of sugar that were sent out all over the United States for people to use in their homes. Another important job that people did in Windsor was keeping track of all of the daily goings-on through the local newspaper called the Poudre Valley. The most important newspaper editor was a man named Roy Ray, and he wrote the newspaper for years and years. Now, newspapers weren't just printed off from a computer, they had to use something called a printing press. In these drawers, we have hundreds and hundreds of individual letters that look like this that would have to be lined up in order to print one newspaper. In 1896, Windsor got its very first telephone, but they didn't work like cell phones did today. They looked a little bit more like this. This piece right here is what you would listen to, and you would talk into this part. But rather than dialing a phone number, you would call the operator, who would actually connect you to another person via something called a switchboard. When a phone call comes in, the switchboard operator would have to connect one person to the phone line that they wanted to talk to. Now, these are only 20 switchboards here, but oftentimes there were entire walls of these, and the switchboard operators would have to memorize where all of the different people lived. Many people worked here in the train depot. Not only was this a place where passengers would come and go, it was also like the post office where many packages would be delivered every day. Many train depot workers had to come in and use this freight room to help bring those packages in and send them back out again. Depot workers and station agents 100 years ago didn't have text messages or email to get in touch with each other, and so they would use the walls of the depot to communicate. They would draw pictures, write each other messages, and sometimes even just sign their names. We can find all kinds of original graffiti here in the depot, including names of previous station agents and people who worked here. Now, we all know better than to draw on the walls of our own houses, but we can still play around with making our own graffiti. Why don't you use some crayons or markers to draw some of your own original graffiti on some paper? Take a photo and share it in the comments of this video.